So here's number one. It goes right here on the coil pack, which should be, clearly marked. And here's number two.
That's far enough. You're not taking him over there.
Number three. And I haven't folded that down all the way yet either.
Well, you can go to the shaver.
One, two, and three, and four, but not five. That's number six. This is five. Here's number six. Alright, here we go. We're going to put the upper intake manifold back on here. And properly torque it down. Make sure that the whole thing's cleaned up, free of debris and all that, unless you just want it to go down your engine and make a car run like crap. On mine, I left the EGR valve on the car. It might be proven to be a huge pain. The short bolts go in the front of this thing and the long bolts go in the back. Get a couple started in there just to hold it in place. I'll try to finagle it on down in there into position. It's mad about what I've done with the wiring harness. Oh, this right here will keep it in place so it don't break anything. Right now would have been a great time to replace my PVC elbow, but I just completely flat out forgot, so I'm just reconnecting it right now like that. Like I was talking about, there's two large bolts that go on the top. This shouldn't be difficult to remember or any of that. definitely don't want to use an impact tool or anything like that on this to put them in there. I know the temptation's pretty great for me too, so I'm not going to. First one that you'll tighten down is the middle bolt, which is this one right here. So I mean, if you look at them like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's how I pretty much look at it. Okay, there you go. I know you can see all the bolts and everything now, so let's go ahead and get started. First pass will be at around 180 inch-pounds of torque. Starting here, and we'll call this bolt number 1. And number 2 is right here. And 3. And 4. 5. 6. Now let's try to get up to somewhere around 216 foot-pounds of torque. And again, here at number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we have that bolted down the lower intake manifold to the upper intake manifold, or whichever way you really want to say that. Now what I'm going to go ahead and proceed to do is install the EGR valve before I forget or get anything else in my way of trying to get that done. Go ahead and connect the other hoses and connectors, some of them. Sorry guys, I wound up doing off camera. make sure that whatever you're doing, you're not making it to where your wires won't be connecting to everything else once all this is said and done, because, well, that ain't going to work out at all now, is it? Look how difficult that is to get in here now. Oh, well, maybe that's because it ain't supposed to. Figure out what I did with the connector for that. Oh, it's laying way down here. It's obvious this hose right here is actually supposed to be underneath those wires, and I just made a big mess up. And then we got no problem hooking everything up. I'm gonna make sure everything's out of the way of your throttle linkage assembly and that it operates smoothly. I went ahead and installed this with some RTV sealer. Didn't feel the need to buy a paper gasket for that. So I just need to find the bolts, and I'll get the EGR valve and of course a brand new gasket for that sucker. Right here that is 70149. Duracrap, I mean last. Okay, so I got that pesky EGR valve in, and forgot to video me putting the throttle cable and all that in, but you know, like if you're doing this kind of job, you should be able to figure out how to put that back on. Reconnected the connector for the throttle position sensor and the idler air control valve, and the hoses that hook up to the DPFE or EF or whatever in the world, and also the vacuum line that runs to the EGR valve. And let's see here, just got the solenoid here that needs to be plugged back in whenever I can find its connector, which those are right here. Looks like. Yep. Solenoid as well. And there we go, we got those all hooked up. Okay, now let's go over here, finish this up. Other mess we got going on. I went ahead and I have my Serpentine belt already ran down through here for convenience while all the pulleys and everything else is off and out of the way. What we'll go ahead and do right now is reinstall the idler is a tension knobbler. Now, if somebody hadn't lost the bolt, this is supposed to be a Torx 50, I read. But somebody else replaced the bolt with another one. And I got a good idea who you are there, Big John, but I don't really care. I care more about whoever busted the fuel rail now. If I knew who that was, I'd have to go down there and say something to them. Take advantage of people like that and breaking stuff that has to do with the fuel system and not telling them because, well, they don't want to have to fix all that. I can see it's a pain in the butt, but I'll tell you what, I'd be so angry at somebody for causing me to have a gas leak or something crazy like that just because they want to save $1. I'm going to put the nuts back on the bracket here. There's 13 millimeters. We got that bracket back in there now. I'm not sure what this one goes to, but sure we'll figure it out. Oh yeah, I know exactly what that goes to now. have my eyes open just a little. It goes down here onto the ground ignition sensor. And take my word for it, you definitely want that plate out. You ain't going anywhere about that. Make sure to snug it with the little stud it's got there to keep the wire out of the way of the water pump wheel and the serpentine belt. I'm going to go ahead and put the oil pan on. I'm not going to video that. That's not very impressive or anything. I can't really get a good camera angle on that. And go ahead and put the exhaust back so I can put the heat shield back in, because I can't move this really because the exhaust is in the way. I need to be able to be able to install the ground strip. Now let's hook up that pesky fuel line. It's just a simple quick connect. Just push it in there gently. And don't break it. And you have to push it until you hear that click. And that means it's in there. Just put the little lock clip back on there. And there we go. That JB weld to hold it good as new. And we'll go ahead and stick the breather back on, or air filter housing cover back on. Oh yeah. And then you'll need to line up the brackets at the bottom so you get a good seal. Do this. And just clamp it back down. You want to go ahead and hook your vacuum hose up to the elbow fitting. And wherever that wire went. Okay, I went ahead and put the water pump pulleys, 4 13mm bolts back on. And I just started to put the idler pulley here back on. And we've already got the tensioner pulley down there on. So next we're going to go ahead and put on the alternator. The thing you're going to want to do is, this is an auto adjustment sleeve. You're going to want to tap it flush from behind. See, it'll move in and out to adjust the alternator's positioning. So you'll want to make sure, and from the back side, tap it on out so that you'll have no trouble getting your alternator in there. Plug her in. 10mm bolt on the back that'll connect to the charging system. The baby!
Allie's gonna give you a paper sheet right when you come inside. Taking him to bed, baby.
Alright, so this thing here went on like this or something like that, right? Oh yeah. Oops. But I don't know if you can see that all the way down. Yeah, you can. But you want to make sure and put the bottom of that bracket there on that stud that's sticking out. That's why it's important, you know, to get all these studs and everything in the right places, else your hangers and stuff's gonna laugh at you. Okay, so after you've got your bracket down there in the bottom, you want to make sure that it can go right here in the engine dampener. It's not really a shock absorber because it's a shock, but you just fasten it down like this right here. But don't go grab the wrench and tighten it up yet or anything, just leave it like that. Make sure in the process that you're not getting your belt all caught up in your hardware here just like that. That you have your mass airflow sensor connected, as well as your water temperature sensors down here at the bottom. Make sure both those two plugs are plugged up. Make sure that you take your connector and connect up your coil pack as well, but I'm not going to connect that first off because I'm going to do some cranking on it before I actually start it to get it lubricated and everything. So I'm going to actually leave that unhooked. Make sure your idle air control valve is connected, and behind that you got your throttle position sensor. Make sure you have this vacuum servo connected, as well as your DPFE, or I don't know what, I can't remember what alphabet that one is there. And then of course your EGR valve. And I already went over the fuel injectors there. Make sure to reconnect the fuel supply to the fuel rail and the connector to the fuel pressure sensor, the vacuum line. Connect any of that junk in the back that you disconnected. Also Don't forget, before you get too involved here, reconnect that. Let's see if we can even see it. I can't tell what I'm looking at down here on this thing. There you go. Reconnect your crank position sensor. If you don't, your car's not going to start. If you don't reconnect a lot of things, your car's not going to start. Reconnected the pressurized, and down there below it, the return to the power steering pump. I'm also going to reconnect the 2 connectors that go down to the oxygen sensors, and the connector for the clutch for the air conditioner compressor. I've also hooked up the I don't know if that's some kind of freon sensor or what in the world that is down there. That's on the back of the compressor with the long fittings. I'm not an AC guy, but I've got that reconnected. Reconnected the wire to the alternator, as well as the charging wire. Got the spark plug wires all plugged back into the coil pack with the plugs and wires in the correct order and all that good stuff. Checked it at least twice. All the bolts have been torqued down like they ought to, or at least close enough. And we've got the air filter and all that on there. So all we got left to do is just a little bit to get the serpentine belt on here and what's underneath here, which is oil pan gasket time. But waiting to get the other car so that I can go down at the AutoZone, get me a can of Idiot Spray, clean that up, and install a new oil pan. And then I have to put the exhaust manifold back up, which is kind of just dreading that one, I guess. I hate anything to do with exhaust work. And then, yeah, get the starter back in the thing and put the fluids back in it and start having fun flushing the crap out of it. Alright, got my gasket all laid out, ready to go on my oil pan. And the diagram that I'm going to follow on how to torque them down. Just to show you here, there's 4 spots where you're going to have to put you some engine sealant, RTV sealant, whatever. Right there is where the front cover meets the engine block. You want to put it on both sides, and back here at the back near the main bearing, you want to put some on each corner there. And then we're going to put the oil pan up. Really dreading this part between that and the exhaust. So there we go, I got the oil pan back in, and tomorrow when it's daylight, I'm going to work on getting the exhaust back into this thing. Yeehaw. So here's how I got my exhaust back up. Well, getting it up so far anyway. I went ahead and put that nut there on that one bolt. I don't have the other one in yet, and it's not tightened down or anything. It's just on there to make sure that it's hanging into position. But this is how I found the easiest way, and it didn't take me long at all to figure this out. Just 2 tries, and I realized I needed a block of wood under here. But anyway, get your jack and jack up on the front portion of the exhaust, and on the underneath side, you know, just wiggle and finagle the union there together and get your clamps to lock down together. And then I'm going to go over here and try to get the bolts in for the rear of the engine, or the left side of the engine really. But other than it just being hard to get both my hands up in there to work that after jacking it up, I mean, it's not really that hard. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this bolt here back in the alternator, and it's a 13mm. the tension pulley and take up the slack on, get some slack on this belt so that I can put it on the alternator. The 15 millimeter, some people tell you to use two and lock them together, but if you got the coolant recovery tank out, I don't see why you really have to. Just make sure and pull it towards the front of the car. I mean, you're releasing it, it's like you're tightening the bolt, so it's on the actual pulley itself. So there's how it is. There's my pretty creative drawing about it. Check out my website at tireandx.com and click on the articles for the routing diagram, as well as any other diagrams for some of the stuff that I've used, like the torque sequences for the oil pan and lower and upper intake manifolds and valve covers. Okay, so enough of that. We got the Serpentine belt installed on here. We've got the radiator hoses all installed now. The air breather box is on this thing. All I need to do is hook up a coolant recovery tank and fill this thing up with some fluids for a test start. So it won't take long before it's brand ugly. But you get pretty much no real room to work or any hose to work with here in this bottom hose that you need to make sure you connect first before you do anything else. Made my head hurt like crazy. Goodness. And then you'll want to install the bleeder lines that come into the system. When you put these back on here, it's preferable that you put these in the same orientation which they were on, but I don't always do that, but it's best if you do. Probably should have spray painted the coolant recovery tank that way. Wouldn't never see how ugly it was really going to get. First time I replaced these, it took me forever to get that on there. And you install the other bleeder line. So you want to wait and do this one last. And there's a little slot on the inside of the fender that this goes to. And there you go, that's installed. So now I guess I'm gonna work on putting the wheel back on the car and all that. I'm not gonna bother videoing that, and also put in the splash guard as well, and I'm gonna work on flushing this engine out of this car. Okay, let's tighten down this 15mm bolt, and you can also observe what I was talking about, this auto adjusting sleeve. As you tighten the bolt, you can see that the sleeve's moving towards the alternator. to secure it in place. And also don't forget to tighten the 13mm bolt here that secures the engine to the engine dampener. Remember, you got two bolts that go back into your water coolant recovery tank. Here, if you need to remove your fuel feed to your fuel rail from your fuel pump, you just take one of these quick disconnect tools, wrap it around there and push it down into the fitting and gently remove. There we go. Got this whole thing pretty much assembled, except I don't have any coolant in it yet, but wanted to make sure it's going to start before I proceeded any further. This time, right now, when I try to start, it's not going to really start. Coil pack's unhooked. So, just want to get the engine lubricated. I dumped about 3.5 quarts of automatic transmission fluid in it. So, got the battery all hooked up, so let's give it a crank. It's okay, buddy. Don't be so upsetted. Alright, now let's plug up the coil pack.
Oh, you did that on purpose.
Yeah, I told you that.
I can't hear what you're saying.
Now it's gonna start. Or it's supposed to. It's supposed to. It might sound just a wee little rough, but did fire right up. Here you can tell the car's running a lot better, but it's kind of noisy because the Serpentine belt's wet over there. And you can see what happens if you don't put a water, or if you don't put a gasket on your thermostat housing. But I got water being pumped in from the water hose there. Keep it all nice and topped off at the same rate that it's using it, for the most part. But no thermostat in there to keep it from cycling the water through there to clean that thing out. And like I said, Walmart's finest. ACV, apple cider vinegar. I drained out the system until I started smelling the apple cider vinegar coming out from the radiator, the petcock, and then I closed it. So we got some being lost right there, but other than that, the system is now being cleaned with apple cider vinegar. Now I'm going to let that run for a couple minutes like that and then shut it off. And a little later tonight, I'll flush it back out with water again. So here I'm working on trying to flush out my engine. I got the vinegar out of it, and that's straight up water that's in it. As you can hear, it's running nice and smooth. It's smoking because I spilled a little bit of oil down there. I tried to clean it up, but that's the way it's ultimately going to be cleaned up. It's going to be burned off. But anyway, after you use any kind of cleaner on your engine, you have to flush it out with lots and lots and lots of water. So until you get that nice and clear, just keep it flushing. And it's just like right here under the driver's side, there's the petcock, and you just drain your radiator with that. Then don't forget to turn the water back on. Okay, I'm just sitting here letting it warm up and get hot with just the straight water in it. It's probably not going to build up any pressure because over here at the thermostat housing, there's no gasket or thermostat in it. Here's what the transmission fluid looked like that was drained out of the engine. Doesn't look like there's any water in it, thank God. So, but also after examining the oil that came out of it to start with, there wasn't any water in it either. The only water that was in the pan just came from taking the intake out and all that. So the only problem we really had with the whole thing was just getting water into the oil and not the other way around like I thought. So I'm going to let this thing sit here for a little while and get hot. Then I'm going to dump all the water out of it after it cools off for just a little bit and fill it back up with antifreeze. And then it's going to be time for a road test. Go ahead and put our brand new thermostat on. So there's the thermostat housing, and you'll have 3 10mm bolts. You won't see me take off the bottom one because I didn't put it back in when I put the housing back together without the thermostat in it. The thermostat housing. Now mine's already been cleaned up and I even painted it a little, but here's how you'll want to put it back together. Now here's the proper way to put the thermostat on, and it's not that. It'll go both ways, and it's hard to tell on camera, but this isn't actually perfectly round. It's kind of got an oblong shape or something other to it. Most of these have a little hole on the thermostat that marks it. But you just keep rotating it and make sure that whichever orientation that you mount it in, that it's flush against this housing. Otherwise, you'll have leaks. Because right here at the middle of the top 2 bolts, you'll see that that's not the same size diameter as, say, down here. Now, depending on what gasket you've got, the Fel Pro one that I bought has an adhesive layer, and it's making it take more time to even try and get it off of there. That's awesome. And don't install it with this paper on it either, or it will for sure leak. So, like I said, it's got some adhesive on it. Carefully position this thing where it's supposed to be. It doesn't matter which way you have the gasket flipped, but it's obvious if you're going to use the adhesive, you're going to want to use it on the actual housing itself. So, you can put it like that right there with the thermostat behind the gasket, not in front of it. To make access more easy, I'm going to disconnect the spark plug wires that's in the way. Remember, you got 3 bolts to put in. Don't skip one or any of that. Make sure that the housing itself is dry when you insert the seal to it. You don't want to make the seal wet on contact like that. Just take your rag, wipe it up. My gasket sealing surfaces have already been nice and cleaned. If you haven't, make sure to do it, or you'll be doing this again. If you drop your bolts, that makes it much more harder, so try not to do that. Make sure before you really let it go, you've got one bolt snug down so that the thermostat has no way of changing its orientation or position on you. You've got that all done, then it's time to pick up your upper radiator hose back to it. Now, I'm actually going to replace this one later, but for right now, I'm not going to. But it's in bad shape from oil damage and stuff like that. It's swollen. But, like I said, that's for another day's mess. I need my car running today. And there you go. Make sure when putting these hose clamps back on that you put it back in the same orientation position that it originally was in. That'll give it the best, longest lock, but in my case, I'm not really concerned about that. Another day or two, I'm going to replace the hose anyway. So now that that's been done, I'm going to put some more water in it and drive it up the road a little bit and let it get nice and hot, and then drain it again. There we go. No check engine lights. It's running smooth like it ought to. Zoe, hey, you ready to go for a ride? Give me a shake. Give me a shake, puppy. So, here we go. So the engine's starting to warm up a little. Everything seems fine. That's how everything starts wrong, right? So anyway, I'm going to take this thing down at the gas station, put a little bit of go fumes in it, and see if it's leaking anything when I show up over there. If it is, make sure and show you on camera. And if it's not, well, then you won't be seeing anything. Okay, so I made it back without any kind of incident or anything. That's kind of shocking for me. Anyway, don't ever do this. You see all that water and it's under pressure. It's just coming up out of nowhere on its own, right? Well, don't ever just open that up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drain all this crap out of the engine and refill with antifreeze and check and make sure that it's at the proper 50-50 mixture. So that pretty much concludes the repair work here on this Ford Taurus. And I hope that you all not only just enjoyed this, but I hope that if you actually had to go through the pain of doing any of this work, that my videos were somehow informative and saved you some time, because that's really what the main focus is. So anyway, I appreciate all of you that watch my channel, my videos, and those of you that chat back and forth with me. Thank you. I want to take a moment and praise my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for all the mercy and grace that He's shown me and my family. And if you don't know Him, I pray that you do meet Him. You can read about Him in the King James Bible, and you can check out on my website at sharingthetruthandlove.com and click on the Salvation tab. Have the gospel outlined as to who Jesus Christ is and what He did to save you and how you can be saved by grace through faith alone and no works of yourselves. So anyway, my friends and viewers, thank you again, and praise our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Have a great rest of your weekend.